Alright, welcome back, hoes. We are going to read another chapter of the Mahabharata in this episode. So, and I did not do the summary thing idea yet. I don't know. I mean, because I don't necessarily want to, stop myself from reading the chapters and posting those videos, because obviously this is a lot easier to do than come up with, the little dance explanation. But I do want to do that. I do think it's interesting, so eventually, but, time. So go with the flow. All right, today we got chapter 2, Bhishma's vow. So recap, real quick. Nah, it's okay. I don't want to keep doing that. I'm not going to recaps. Because it's fine. Yeah, you guys, we'll see as I go along. I'll decide, but for now I don't want to do a recap. Okay, yeah, I'm also, in a rush. Slightly, not really, slightly. All right. With joy, the king received to his heart and his kingdom the resplendent and youthful Prince Devavrata, and crowned him as the Yuvaraja, the heir apparent. 4 years went by. One day, as the king was wandering on the banks of the Yamuna, Yamuna is a river, the air was suddenly filled with a fragrance so divinely sweet that the king sought for its cause, and he traced it to a maiden so lovely that she seemed a goddess. A sage had conferred on her the boon that a divine perfume should emanate from her, and that this was now pervading the whole forest. Shoddy smelled really good. That's what that meant. From the moment that the goddess Ganga had left him, the king had kept his senses under control. But the sight of this divinely beautiful maiden burst the bonds of restraint and filled him with an overmastering desire. He asked her to be his wife. The maiden said, "I am a fisherwoman, the daughter of the chief of the fishermen. May it please you to ask him and get his consent." Her voice was as sweet as her form. Her father was an astute man. He said, "O king, there is no doubt that this maiden, like every other, has to be married to someone, and you are indeed worthy of her. Still, you have to make a promise to me before you can have her." Santanu replied, "If it is just a promise, I shall make it." The chief of the fisher folk said, "The child born of this maiden should be the king after you." Though almost mad with passion, the king could not make this promise, as it meant setting aside the godlike Devavrata, the son of Ganga, who was entitled to the crown. It was a price that could not be thought of without shame. Therefore, returned to his capital. He returns. Yeah. Therefore, he returned to his capital, Hastinapura, sick with baffled desire. He did not reveal the matter to anyone and languished in silence. One day, Devavrata asked his father, "My father, you have all that heart could wish. Why, then, are you so unhappy? How is it that you are like one pining away with a secret sorrow?" The king replied, "Dear son, what you say is true. I am indeed tortured with mental pain and anxiety. You are my only son, and you are always preoccupied with military ambitions. Life in the world is uncertain, and wars are incessant. If anything untoward befalls you, our family will be extinct. Of course, you are equal to 100 sons. Still, those who are well read in the scriptures say that this transitory world, having but one son, is the same as having no son at all. It is not proper, then, that the perpetuation of our family should depend on a single life. And above all things, I desire the perpetuation of our family. This is the cause of my anguish." The father prevaricated, being ashamed to reveal the whole story to his son. The wise Devavrata realized that there must be some secret cause for the mental condition of his father, and questioning the king's charioteer, came to know of his meeting with the fisher maiden on the banks of the Yamuna. He went to the chief of the fishermen and besought his daughter's hand on his father's behalf. The fisherman was respectful but firm. "My daughter is indeed fit to be the king's spouse. Then should not her son become king? But you have been crowned as the heir apparent, and will naturally succeed your father. It is this that stands in my way." Devavrata replied, "I give you my word that the son born of this maiden shall be king, and I renounce in his favor my right as heir apparent." And he took to a vow that effect, and he took a vow to that effect. The chief of the fishermen said, "O best of Bharata race, you have done what no one else of royal blood has done till now. You are indeed a hero. You can conduct my daughter to the king your father. Still, hear with patience these words of mine which I say as the father of the girl. I have no doubt that you will keep your word, but how can I hope that the children born of you will renounce their birthright? Your sons will naturally be mighty heroes like you, and will be hard to resist them if they seek to seize the kingdom by force. This is the doubt that torments me." When he heard this naughty question, naughty as in Knotty, that naughty. When he heard this naughty question posed by the girl's father, Devavrata, who was bent on fulfilling the king's desire, made his supreme renunciation. He vowed with upraised arm to the father of the maiden, "I shall never marry, and I dedicate myself to a life of unbroken chastity." And as he uttered these words of renunciation, the gods showered flowers on his head, and cries of Bhishma, Bhishma resounded in the air. Bhishma means one who undertakes a terrible vow and fulfills it. That name became the celebrated epithet of Devavrata from that time. Then the son of Ganga led the maiden Satyavati to his father. 2 sons were born of Satyavati to Santanu, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, who ascended the throne one after the other. Vichitravirya had 2 sons, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, born respectively of his 2 queens Ambika and Ambalika. The sons of Dhritarashtra, 100 in number, were known as the Kauravas. Pandu had 5 sons who became famous as the Pandavas. Bhishma lived long, honored by all as the paterfamilias, like the patriarch, until the end of the famous battle of the Kurukshetra. So in this chapter, we've basically set up that family tree that I made a little short, if anyone found that confusing, where I explain it again. But this is that family tree, if you can see it. I mean, I know you probably can't read it from there. I don't know, whatever. But so basically, to recap now from here, I guess I can do a little recap real quickly, because that's okay. I didn't take too long. It was 3 pages. I don't know what I was stressing about. Okay, so basically Santanu, in that first chapter, he saw Ganga, and then there was that whole story with the Vasus, and they had stolen a cow, so they got cursed by a sage who was like, "You're going to be born in the mortal world." And so then they're like, "No, please, no, we're sorry." And then he's like, "Fine, you all can die the second you're born, since apparently existence in this world sucks that much that they don't even want to be here." But the last Vasu, who did actually touch the cow and try to take the cow, he would live the longest in his cursed existence or whatever. So he is born, and he is Devavrata, the son of Ganga, who was she raised him basically once Santanu had questioned her, because she was like, "I'll only marry you if you don't ask me questions." And then he was like, "Why are you murdering all of your babies?" And she was like, "You weren't supposed to ask me that." Insert that disappearing vine. So yeah, she raised Devavrata, gave him back to Santanu the king. And so then in the second chapter, Santanu basically became infatuated with another woman named Satyavati, and that is what they were saying, is that Bhishma, the first child from the first marriage or espousement or whatever, is that a word? Whatever, with the so all over the place. Okay, anyways. I'm like I said, I was just rushing because I'm looking at the time. I gotta get going. So, but I'm doing good on time. It's just I can still feel that oh my god, So, in this chapter, then what we're finding out is that Bhishma, from the first wife of Santanu, has agreed to not have children, so that there aren't any issues of who gets the throne amongst Bhishma's children and future children, sires of this side with Satyavati. Jokes on all of that, because they're still gonna fight anyways, just between the two, the children. Okay, the Satyavati, the other second lady, she has 2 sons, and each of those 2 sons have, well, actually, no, the first, No, sorry. The first, so she has two sons. The first son dies. The second son has two wives. And the children that come out of those two wives and their sons and that, like, lineage, they're gonna fight with each other anyways. So, like, nice job, Bhishma. But, like, I mean, granted, a lot of the, like, point of his role as well as, like, the patriarch, which you will come to see as, like, we learn about the story, it wasn't his responsibility to, like, be like, oh, hey, father is sad because he be getting it, so I want to help him be getting it. And, like, Santanu, like, Bhishma basically, like, starts this because of that decision, right? And so a lot of what I like about, like, the storytelling is there's a lot of this, like, butterfly effect that is implied of, like, every choice you have can lead to, like, so many other choices and things in the future, and you have so little control over those things, and you kind of have to, like, realize that when you read stories like this and you see, like, whether you believe it or not, you know, that's not the point. It's just that, like, in a lot of stories, whether real or not real, you know, we see where, like, one thing happens, you know, you think you're doing one thing, you know, maybe with your own beliefs. Like, we see a lot of people who, for example, are, like, super racist or homophobic, and they genuinely think that they are doing the right thing in God's eye by hating people with, like, everything inside of them. So it's, like, there's a lot of ways in which it's, like, I like the idea that, like, this whole thing happened because one guy was like, I wanted to please my father, and so I chose no women at all, no. I was gonna, but I don't know if I can say that on you. Can I? I think I can. I just don't know if I should. It's fine. I just won't. We'll just say that Bhishma basically ain't getting no puss. There. That's, like, appropriate enough. No kitty, you know? But, like, that's the thing, right? Is, like, you can't... And then he goes on, and you'll see this in future chapters. He's a very controlling person. You know, he actually is, like... He starts off the whole next chapter, basically, with abuse of women, as in, like, disrespect of women and women's autonomy. And, you know, there's a lot of... Like, it's an old story, but the same issues that we see today are in this. And I find it really interesting that a lot of the story just starts off with displaying how quickly people become arrogant and egoistic, and they believe in themselves and themselves only, you know, instead of keeping an open mind throughout the journey. You know, you can't just, like, figure yourself out and then think you have yourself figured out forever, right? The world is a constantly changing thing. And so, you know, you have to, like, stay open-minded throughout life. And I think that, like, the nice part about reading a story like this is I see a character like him and I'm like, I can see what people saw in you when they like you as a character and they hold you up. I can also see all the ways in which I can criticize you as a character, as a person, and what lessons I can learn in terms of not doing that, you know, not having that obsession with, like, control, you know. Even with something like this, it's like this exercise in yapathon, right? I'm trying to primarily focus on it being something I'm doing with my time, right? Like, going back to that video where I was talking about the poem and, like, not being attached to, like, I'm just doing things because I'm alive and I get to do things and I get to interact with people and talk about things and have conversations with anyone this way, right? I think that's so cool, and it's enough of a cool, amazing thing that we have access to that I want to do it as imperfectly as I can, you know? And not holding that, like, sense of, like, self and ego and, like, oh my god, this is my thing, Dari, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm, you know, like, creating a brand. Like, that's not the point. I'm not trying to create a brand. I know that's always often a consequence of endeavors like this, right? But that doesn't mean that has to be the intent, right? And I think that that's kind of important, you know? Like, I'm really trying to, like, go about the creativity that I'm trying to, like, follow in all aspects of my life, including in my own, like, medical studies. I'm trying to keep that artist mind alive in my approaches to medicine, because I think it's important. You know, you can't have every single person in one field thinking the same way, because you're just like, what's the point? You're not gonna get the diversity and collaboration from a bunch of people that are the exact same, you know? And it's weird because like politics today and society and everything is so like, well, you know, we want everyone in this one place to be exactly like this, and this country is this way, and blah blah blah, and everyone's like digging themselves into their own like holes of cultures, you know what I mean? And then at the same time, people who didn't grow up with as much culture, they're like desperate for culture, to the extent of which it's like there's a cultural blindness, a lack of proper appreciation and critical thinking, you know? So there's a lot of complexities, but like I feel like this is like, it's one step towards it, you know? Like, to like as someone who is so hypercritical, like I'm such a spiritual person, but at the same time so hypercritical of like the socio-political systems around us, and I've been called out many times for being upset with the world around me, you know? Like, it's not, people don't like to hear complaints, you know? Complaining isn't like, I don't know, like people just don't like it when people like me, who look like me, have a lot to say about systems that we don't get as much of an influence in sometimes, right? So I think it's like, at the end of the day, the fact that I just have access to this phone and this iPad and the internet and I can do this, that's so cool. You know, there's so many people that look like me that can't do that. And I hope that I'm making them all proud, trying to do the best that I can with what I have, you know, trying my best to just discuss culture, medicine, things that I know, things that I'm curious about, right? Like, I was watching, so I'll link it down below now that I'm going to mention it in this one, I guess. I was watching a video yesterday. Frick, man, I'm actually forgetting what the channel was called, because it was the first time I'd run into that channel. So I don't even remember what it was, but it was a very lovely girl talking about the importance of art in times of sociopolitical stress and war, and how, like, it's a responsibility of the citizen to partake in the exchange of ideas between the government and the people, you know, to be critical of your own government. It's also equally as important to fight for expression and to maintain that freedom of expression and freedom to be diverse, you know. It is a freedom for me to be here, to sit here, to be different from you. And I don't take it for granted, you know. And if you are someone who is different from me, sitting there receiving this with an open mind, I don't take that for granted. I truly respect and love you for having that open-mindedness and that curiosity, because I know how hard it is to branch out and to break free of the molds that we grow up in, right? So stay curious, be open-minded, and please try to stick with me and, you know, maybe learn some things about if it's a culture that is yours partly or not. Doesn't matter, you know. We're all on the same planet together. Some people, billions of people, have cared about this, and I think that it's a cool way to talk about some spirituality things, but also, more importantly, I want to talk about the points in the story that remind me of the modern world, because it's not just like a religious story. It's a story about humans, about people, about the way that people are, about how greedy and lustful and revenge-minded and egoistic people can be, but also how good they can be. You know, it's just one of those like heroes' tales, and I really do like that, you know, even a story as old as this just mirrors what we see today, you know. It's the same thing as like, I for the first time in my life was like, I watched a video, Fig Tree, I think Fig Tree was the channel, and they were basically reading the like original version of the, was it? No, it wasn't. It's okay, I'll talk about it in another video. You know what? I don't want to keep this going on too long. I'm already hitting 20 minutes. But That's okay. The point is, like, I don't know a lot about all the stories that come from different religions. I want to know them. And I know that I'm gonna know them one day. And that is so exciting, you know? Because I think at the end of the day, everyone who is here, who is alive, we're all like, why are we alive? What are we doing? And we're just trying to make do. And when people try to make do and talk to each other about how they're trying to make do, you know, like, it's cool. Cool things happen, right? And so I'm very excited with the way that this has been going. Thank you all for whoever has been keeping up with it thus far. And in the future, you know, any of you that come by, thank you for stopping by, you know. Stay curious, that's the main thing. And don't necessarily just put aside things like this just because it's not from your own culture or from your own religion or things like that, you know. I genuinely feel like a lot of the peace in the future of humanity is going to come when people start realizing that just because you weren't raised in one religion doesn't mean you, like, bar yourself from learning about, at the very least, learning about the other people that inhabit the same world as you and practice different religions that might be based in the same goals of peace and faith and whatever, you know. Like, we are a lot more similar than we are different. And I hate that it's such a hard concept to get through to people, but it is, you know. All right, that is a wrap for today's videos. So glad I was able to get a couple out. Now I can go and cramp away for the rest of the day and also teach the little kids art soon. Super excited for that. So yeah, all right, I'll see you guys. Bye.